Your joints hurt, your medication reduces the pain, and every few months you adjust the dose, or you add another drug, or you switch biologics. And somewhere in there, you wonder, is this just what the rest of my life looks like? Well, today I want to show you why that question deserves a different answer. Not a hopeful answer, not a motivational answer, but a scientific answer. Hi, I'm Dr. Wisniewski. Been in practice for 43 years. I'm the founder of the FOXP3 Institute. I'm an Amazon #1 best-selling author. And in the next few minutes, I'm going to show you the Nobel Prize mechanism that your rheumatologist has never mentioned in the context of your rheumatoid arthritis. And I'm going to show you why it changes everything about how you understand this disease. All right, let's go. Well, before I even get to the mechanism, I want to acknowledge something. You know what RA is. You know what it's like. You know what the textbook version is. The version where your hands announce the weather before any appointment does. You know, where morning stiffness is measured in hours, not minutes. Where fatigue runs so deep that damaged joints alone can't even explain it. And where you've tried everything faithfully and you're still losing ground. Well, here's a number that should stop us cold. Over half of RA patients don't achieve full remission on their first DMARD, which is disease-modifying anti-rheumatic drugs. Over half. So for the most common inflammatory arthritis that there is in medicine, it's half. And by the way, and for all the DMARDs, all the biologics, all the lab monitoring, 0 of those treatments address the gene that controls whether your immune system attacks your joints at all. That gene has a name, and that's what the next several minutes are going to be about. So on October 6th, 2025, the Nobel Committee awarded the prize in physiology and medicine for a gene called FOXP3. So their finding was that FOXP3 is the master regulator of the immune system. When it works properly, your immune system knows the difference between a threat and your own tissue. But when it doesn't, that's when autoimmune disease develops. Now, let me translate that specifically for RA. Okay, so FOXP3 produces regulatory T cells. We call them Tregs. Their job, in fact, their only job, is to patrol the immune system, recognize self-tissue, and then call off the attack on it. So when FOXP3 is working properly, your Tregs recognize your synovial membrane, which is the lining of your joints. They recognize that as your own tissue. So they call off the attack. When FOXP3 fails, when the Tregs go offline, Th17 cells dominate. So interleukin 17 surges, tumor necrosis factor alpha surges. The synovial lining of your joints becomes the target of a misdirected attack. That is rheumatoid arthritis at the gene level. So your RF and your anti-CCP antibodies, they're measuring the downstream consequence of FOXP3 failure. Not the failure itself, but the consequence of that. Now, here's where RA gets specific. And this is the part most RA patients have never heard. The microbial trigger most strongly linked to RA is called Proteus mirabilis. And Proteus is a gut bacteria, and it produces proteins that molecularly mimic synovial tissue antigens, the same antigens that your anti-CCP antibodies are attacking. So what does that mean? It means your immune system may have learned to attack your joints while they were fighting a gut infection. Not the joints themselves, but a protein in the gut that happens to look like, at least to your immune system, it looks like joint tissue. And once the immune system learns that pattern, it just keeps firing. This is called molecular mimicry. And it's the strongest documented microbial mechanism in all of autoimmune rheumatology. The second trigger is parvovirus B19. That's a specific virus that specifically disrupts the Th17 Treg balance in joint homing T cells. And here's the cardiovascular piece that almost nobody mentions. RA patients have a 50% increased risk of cardiovascular disease, not from the medication, from the same systemic inflammatory burden that FOXP3 failure creates. Joint disease and heart risk, same upstream mechanism, different downstream targets. So, why does FOXP3 fail in RA patients? Well, there's a number of different destabilizing pathways. We're going to take a look at 4 of the very, very common ones for RA, because most of my RA patients have 2 or 3 of these running simultaneously. That's why every treatment eventually hits a ceiling. So number 1, you have gut dysbiosis and Proteus molecular mimicry. So 70% of your regulatory T cells live in your gut lining. When dysbiosis is present, and Proteus is particularly relevant here, you destroy the home base of your immune peacekeepers. And no gut resolution means no upstream reset. So regardless of what DMARD that you're taking, you're going to have a problem. So number 2, nutritional deficiency. And we're talking about vitamin D, selenium, zinc, and magnesium. Those are all FOXP3 essential cofactors. The gene needs them to express properly. And RA patients are almost universally depleted in all 4 of those. So without those cofactors, the conductor has no baton. In other words, the conductor is leading this immune orchestra. And even when you've created the right metabolic conditions, if you have those deficiencies, there's going to be a problem. Number 3, mitochondrial dysfunction. So regulatory T cells need more cellular fuel than almost any other immune cell. Chronic synovial inflammation impairs mitochondria system-wide. And that means that the Tregs literally run on empty. And then the Th17-driven destruction of joint tissue, that just continues unchecked. Number 4, chronic pain in the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis suppression. In other words, chronic pain, sleep disruption, and the psychosocial stress of living with RA directly suppresses the FOXP3 through the glucocorticoid pathways. So the disease creates the conditions that deepen the mechanism that's resulting in the disease. So it's a self-reinforcing cycle that no DMARD even addresses. So how many of those 4 do you actually recognize in your own situation right now? So the FOXP3 protocol is a 5-phase, 90-day program built specifically around this upstream mechanism. And the most important thing that I can tell you about the sequence, the order is not optional. Each phase creates the exact biological environment that the next phase requires. So phase 1, it's only 1 day. It's just immune preparation. It's a sort of create the runway. You start the core 5 supplements. Then we get into phase 2. That's 40 days. This is where FOXP3 induction actually happens. And what we need to do in this phase is we create the AMPK dominant, mTOR suppressed metabolic state. In other words, we create the specific conditions under which FOXP3 gene expression is most powerfully upregulated. And by the way, for RA patients, this is the phase where the Th17 Treg balance, it has to begin to shift. This is where the gut joint axis starts to actually reset. Then we go to phase 3. It's 3 days. It's the biological bridge. This is what prevents regression. In fact, it's the autonomy phase. In other words, we take away FOXP3 support formula, and what we want to see is, do the symptoms return, or are we still solid? Then we go into phase 4. This is mitochondrial rebuilding. So it's a new metabolic baseline is established. And then phase 5 is ongoing. That's where we get food freedom, starts to expand, flare vulnerability decreases. This is a protocol with a beginning, a middle, and an end. Not a lifetime of management, a 90-day course of action followed by a different relationship with your body's own immune system. Now, the thing about this And I want to be direct about something because it matters clinically and it matters to me personally. Continue whatever you're doing. This is additive, all right? It's not you do this instead of whatever you're doing. So continue your, if you're on methotrexate, Humira, Enbrel, your Rituxan, your biologics, whatever your rheumatologist has prescribed, you stay on it. And you do it under their supervision without exception. So continue all your rheumatology appointments, continue your CRP and ESR monitoring, continue your anti-CCP titers, continue your CBCs. This protocol doesn't replace your rheumatologist care. It addresses what your rheumatologist care cannot even reach. And that is the upstream immune regulatory mechanism that's actually driving the attack that's causing all these downstream lab markers. So in other words, it is additive, not alternative. And by the way, your rheumatologist is managing the downstream inflammatory consequences, but this protocol is targeting the upstream gene that generates those consequences. And you need both, not one or the other. Let me give you a quick picture of what this actually looks like in practice. So a patient, this is a composite patient, named is changed. They came to us after a decade with RA, diagnosed at 42 years old, RF and anti-CCP positive, on methotrexate for 3 years. Then they do 2 biologics switches. They do steroid bursts twice a year, ESR and CRP monitored monthly, joint damage accumulating in their hands, their wrists, despite CRP improvement. That's so on paper they see CRP that's improving, but their symptoms aren't. So he enrolls in the FOXP3 protocol, continued every rheumatology medication, all the appointments. We added the protocols, the food pharmacy personalized food list, the food sequencing, the nutritional supplements, including the FOXP3 specific supplements, including Automost, as well as some personalized supplements. In his case, and they'll vary, but it was curcumamost, resveramost, particularly, and BMost, I believe, is on there. Actually, Alimost, so you have done. Food pharmacy intelligence, running Proteus cross reactivity filtering, 5 phases complete. A year later, you have CRP decline substantially, morning stiffness duration markedly reduced, energy restored to a level that he described as pre-RA, and he said, I didn't know I could feel this way again. See, individual results, of course, are going to vary significantly. I never promise a specific number, but the pattern's consistent. Years of doing the right thing at the wrong level, and then that upstream mechanism finally gets addressed. See, he didn't fail a decade of treatment. A decade of treatment failed to reach the mechanism. So we got to say, what's your next step? Here's what I want you to do right now. Option 1, go watch the full free webinar. You see it in the information below. It's about 60 minutes. It's on the complete science, the full 5-phase protocol, the 3 false beliefs that most RA patients carry around with them, and just in a full patient case study from day 1 through day 5. You can see the link below. You can go to drraywellness.com/RA. Option 2, you can just book a strategy consultation directly. Right now, because you've watched this, because we have it here, it's regularly $99. It's going to be $39 with the code webinar39. It's applied in full towards enrollment if you decide to just move forward. So in other words, you spend that $39, and if you wish to do the program, that $39 will be applied towards the program. And by the way, this is it's about a 20-minute consultation or more. And I do most of these personally. I used to say I do all of them personally, but I'm running out of time, so we may have some staff. There's an extremely good chance that you'll get me personally, but we may not be able to do that, or they may have to give you some options of how soon you want that done. Your labs, your history, your joint damage timeline, your specific case. I'll tell you honestly, if this is the right fit, why it is or why it is not. Option 3, you can go get the book. We put out our book that was going to be the second book. We put that out first, the FOXP3 Protocol for women, because it's a great read. The FOXP3 Protocol may be out while you're watching this because it's going to be out shortly. Make sure you subscribe because we're building this for the majority of autoimmune conditions. The mechanism is the same. The application is specific to your diagnosis. And we're going to put up new videos just regularly. Here's the thing. The joint is not the enemy. Your immune system isn't functioning properly. It's lost its regulatory function. The protocol is designed to restore that function. And the way that we do that, we'll go over this with you. Like I said, just go to drraywellness.com or FOXP3. If you go to drraywellness.com/RA, you can give us a call. You can schedule an appointment. You can watch the webinar. But I look forward to helping you in this your autoimmune journey with RA. I look forward to seeing you and meeting you. Let's overcome this together.